Hey everybody, welcome to Fantasy R&R. This is your host Ryan.
And I'm Rob.
And by week 4, we're revisiting the top 10 players to avoid podcast that I did before the season.
This is Fantasy with Rob and Ryan, Fantasy R&R.
Okay, so I chose 10 players that I think it would be wise to avoid this year in drafts or trades or holding on to in your keeper leagues. Number 1, I actually started with Jonathan Taylor. A lot of chatter on this podcast in particular last year. I was not about Jonathan Taylor. I wanted him off my team pretty early. I did not believe in that 2,000-yard season I had from him in my keeper league. I've never seen the explosiveness from Jonathan Taylor that other people seem to see. I don't think he's a good teammate, which is becoming more and more obvious now. It's kind of all about him. He doesn't put a lot of effort on any play that's not going to kind of showcase his talents and ability or lack thereof. Jonathan Taylor is right now currently sitting at the bottom of the rush yard total for the NFL with 0. We know that he's been on that PUP list and he's not even eligible to come back until week 5. Rob, what do you make of this? Is this one of those plug-and-play guys like everybody's hoping? Maybe you drafted too early and you did take him top 5 and now you're realizing like, hey, he was the star player in my first-round pick. I've just got to stick him in now. I mean, like, do you do that? Do you trade for him? Do you trade him away? Do you just outright drop him? What would you do with the guy?
Yeah, I mean, we had talked about this at the beginning of the season. I, like you, didn't want anything to do with Jonathan Taylor whatsoever. And I was even laughing in the face of my buddy Tommy, who I got him at a steal in the 3rd round, and I'm like, I wouldn't even have wasted that pick. I think if you have Jonathan Taylor and somebody's like, hey, what do you want for him? You trade him immediately. I just don't like what I'm seeing at all. This is baby games. We've seen this before with Le'Veon Bell, Melvin Gordon, a couple running backs that come to mind. I don't like it, and I don't want anything to do with J-Tay going forward.
Do you think Zach Moss, while obviously a fine fill-in for fantasy owners at the moment, kind of reminds me of like, Alex Collins, where I don't think is going to last, but he might have a few games as a backup that fills in. But do you think that the Colts would have any reason to not continue peppering in Moss even when J-Tay comes back?
No, excuse me, I don't see why not. And Zach Moss, it goes, and funny enough, we were just kind of talking about this with James Cook. I just don't feel like he got a fair shot with the Bills because they're so Josh Allen heavy that he just never got a chance to run. So I think why not? With Minshew under center and even when AR comes back, who else do they got in that backfield? I say let Moss run.
So this is one where I got to eat crow. Obviously, it looks like J-Tay so far, that was a pan out. And remember, I posted this, I think, before he even went on the PUP list. So thank God if anybody listened to us. Not many people do, but the 5 or 10 people out of like the 40, 50 views, if anybody is taking any of this advice, hopefully you listen to that one. The next one, not so much. Now, most of this list we did nail, but this one has not been panning out so far. This is a loss for me, taking a big L on my face, putting on the clown makeup. We got Kenneth Walker III averaging over 4 yards a carry on 47 attempts, has 204 yards on the season through 3 games, almost had a 100-yard effort against Carolina in week 3, 2 TDs each in the last 2 weeks, and he's been involved in the receiving game with almost 60 yards receiving. So he had about 150 yards from scrimmage week 3 in Carolina. Started off with 8.7, but now 17.9, 29.1 fantasy points in our format in ESPN. I can only imagine he's going to continue that trend. Right now, after 3 weeks, he is the 3rd ranked running back in fantasy. So as of week 4, wrong on this one. So everybody that was telling me Zach Charbonnet would take a lot of his carries away, that clearly wasn't true. Did you take this guy anywhere? Did you draft him anywhere, Rob?
I didn't, and it's simply because of that. And ironically enough, just to go full circle what we've talked before, it's almost like, in a way, the Tank Bigsby thing. A lot of people are overblowing that, going, oh, he's going to eat in. It didn't happen, and it's not going to happen. And it looks like Kenneth Walker really is that great of a running back, like he demonstrated when he was there at Michigan State. I don't like the Seahawks. I even really wouldn't trade for Kenneth Walker, to be honest. I know wasn't he dealing with a couple injuries, I think, in either preseason or the offseason. And Charbonnet's a pretty good running back. If anything, I want Charbonnet on my bench. I have Charbonnet, I think, in 1 or 2 leagues, I want to say. But I'm not afraid to deploy Kenneth Walker, clearly. But I don't like Seattle. And again, we're not even a full month into the season. And on a lot of teams, I feel like the other shoe is going to drop, and the other shoe is going to drop on Kenneth Walker. So I still like the prediction. It just, again, 3 weeks in, let's see more, as I keep saying.
So Deshaun Watson was next on my list, and was the only QB I even mentioned. And I think the reason I brought him up is because I have to imagine in 10-team leagues and 12-team leagues, especially with the majority of casual, fantasy football fans probably being in 10-team leagues, Deshaun Watson to me seemed like a name that you wanted to jump on in 2018, but now you have to kind of tread carefully with the kind of people that are in the league, such as Herbert and obviously the perennial top 10 Kirk Cousins. Here's a great point I want to make, because I think I was right about Deshaun Watson, although I would find it hard to believe that anybody was gunning for him in the first place. If you decided to just take as many position players as possible, and you let everybody take Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow and T-Law and blah, 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 blah. And maybe you were right because those guys aren't, putting up spectacular points anyway. You're probably left with options like Deshaun Watson, Kenny Pickett, Sam Howell. Those are going to be your starters that you have available to you if you're the last guy to take a quarterback in this fantasy football year. So with Deshaun Watson having 678 passing yards on the season, 4 TDs, 4 turnovers, and just a handful of rushing yards under 100 through 3 weeks, he's position rank 11. And I don't see that changing. I think he will be on that ass end of QBs, and that's the way it's going to be. So I really do think, to prove my point that we were even, right about this one, why don't we go over here to the quarterbacks, and I'll look at the top 10. And right now, in PPR rankings, we've got number 1 right now. Let me go to the schedule. Overview, position rank. Kirk Cousins is the number 1 fantasy quarterback. Justin Herbert, number 2. Jordan Love, number 3. Tua, number 4. Mahomes, 5. We know that's going to happen. Russell Wilson's actually 6. Hurts is 7. Goff is 8. You and me have talked about, I have a love for Goff. Lamar Jackson is in 9. Josh Allen's at 10. And then guess who's 12 right after Deshaun Watson? Mac Jones, kind of the quarterback you think would be there. So it's like, look at all these quarterbacks that probably people weren't very excited about that are still performing better than Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, no, and we've talked about Deshaun Watson at length. I know for a fact you've had him. We both have had our hearsay on him at one point. He was such a great quarterback. I'm blanking on the year. But, since then, he's been mediocre. With the Browns losing Nick Chubb the way they did, I don't know, man. I'm just going to say it like I did previously with Kenneth Walker. It's like, I want to see the other shoe drop on Deshaun Watson. I don't think it's going to be pretty. I don't like him at all. I actually really like, and I'm blanking on his name right now, is the UCLA quarterback they drafted, I want to say, in the 5th round, who had a pretty good little preseason. I know preseason doesn't mean anything, but for quarterbacks, it could. And that is actually who I'm looking at. I want to say he's number 11, and I apologize for forgetting his name. But I think that dude's going to end up being, I don't know. He potentially could be the heir to Deshaun Watson, almost the way that Trey Lance potentially could be the heir to the Dak, I'm working on my interceptions, Prescott.
So the next one I got to eat crow on is Keenan Allen here. I said he would be one to avoid after a litany of injuries derailing his seasons and just kind of slower output over the last 2 years, even though he's kind of, one of those Mike Evans guys where he's just always going to get you 1,000 yards. Keenan Allen's been spectacular every single game. Over 10 fantasy points. His last one even threw a touchdown. I think he had a better quarterback rating than most of the real quarterbacks that week. 40.48 fantasy points in our league. Yeah, he had a 40-yard TD pass. Yeah, over 200 yards receiving, just an absolute monster all season so far. Now, with Mike Williams down, they're going to lean even heavier on Keenan Allen, and you're going to see an uptick
Right.
for Quentin Johnson and Josh Palmer. So,
Right.
I mean, Eckler's probably going to be coming back soon, which may take some of the pressure off Allen, but I'd have to
limited
assume.
practice yesterday.
Yeah, I'd have to assume that Allen just stays involved for the rest of the year, and this was a big bust on my part. So if you got Allen in like that third, fourth round, kudos to you. It looks like somebody just proposed a trade. I do just want to move on to, though,
Well,
real
real
quickly.
quick, Ryan, with Allen, I mean, there's been injury scares. I mean, again, we're only looking at 3 weeks. Like, I'm worried about Keenan Allen getting injured like he normally does. Again, I guess I'm just going to keep saying this, the other shoe dropping, because we're not even a month into the season. So, again, I think looking ahead, I don't think we should set in stone saying, okay, you were wrong. I really think
No,
we should
just
kinda
wrong
say,
through
what
3
you're
weeks going
saying
into
is
week 4.
correct. Yeah, what you're saying is correct. And if he gets injured and he's done for the season like he's proven he's done the last few years, you are not wrong.
This trade proposal is ridiculous. Tyler Higbee.
Let's hear it.
Tyler Higbee and Tyler Lockett for Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Get out of town. Nope.
Would I ever take that? He knows I would not take that.
No, that's
I
not
don't.
good.
I have a rule right now. I said nobody. Is a nobody over 30s on my team. Time.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
Cam Akers was number 5 on my list. Mm-hmm. You go ahead and take that.
Yeah, so Cam Akers, one of my dudes. I agree with you. Hothead, we would talk about this, but I always felt like the talent's there. Yeah, he's been an absolute bust. Of course, the Rams were just eking to get him off their team, clearly. Kyron Williams having the game he had, and they were just not so reluctant to just move Cam Akers immediately. I feel like he found himself a good situation in Minnesota. They have nobody behind him. Again, Alexander Madison, I think, was somebody we had talked about to a little bit of an exhaustion, kind of going, hey, this guy really is not an RB1. Let that go, And they're addressing that situation at 0-3. The Vikings are just grasping at straws now, and now they're grasping at a pretty big straw in Cam Akers. So let's see what happens. But as of right now, you hit the nail on the head with my boy, Mr. Akers.
Yeah, 22 attempts for 29 yards. I don't even know how you have that.
I don't think that's good.
Yeah.
I don't think that's good.
No offensive line's going to help you with that one. So, number 6, I had OBJ. And it's because everybody always has that same hype every year where they're just
Every
the
year.
guy's on a new team and he's starting the season with a new team. And
I know.
you knew people that were going to have some kind of ridiculous expectations with OBJ there, and Rashad Bateman not really kind of like pulling it all together last year and dealing with his injury, and now Zay Flowers, who seems to be the man. OBJ is going to do this all season long. He's going to get his 4 to 5 targets. He's going to catch maybe 1 or 2 of them. He'll have maybe 3 touchdowns this season. He's not going to have a 100-yard game.
Nope.
That much I can promise, especially with a guy like Lamar Jackson. So, I mean,
Right.
I don't know why people would even – this is one of those things where it's like, yeah, maybe people weren't really targeting him, but I'm sure somebody was going to think about it in the 7th round, 9th round, 10th round.
Just buying into the name.
And, yeah, and for me, it was just like, don't even bother.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Let's just move on because I'm so tired of OBJ. That's
Same team here, Mark Andrews. I had him at 7 because this was, and I think I explained this on the podcast, but I knew where people were gonna take Andrews,
right.
and
Right.
that's why I didn't think it was worth it.
100%.
So he's position rank 11 right now, and he missed a game, and that's kind of part of the concern. Again, injury on and off. He comes in with a decent game, but he was heavily targeted, but only caught about half, and then only ended up with 45 yards because of it, less than 10 yards a catch, and then managed to get into the end zone to salvage it for 13 points. And then next game, 4 receptions, 35 yards, 5.5. I expect to see a lot of that on the season. And what I meant was
Right.
people are going to see Kelsey get taken. And then you've got the people that don't know whether or not Kittle or Andrews is better, and I think they're both the same. And they're going to realize, like, he's got the best tight end. I need the second best tight end. And it's like, well, for me, it's like there is really no second best tight end. So,
Right.
that's why I said stay away.
Yep. No, 100%. I don't even need to say more. I think, if anything, I've talked about Mark Andrews, and it's just like if you don't have Kelsey, you don't have a tight end, period.
Okay, for you, this next one I said stay away from, and I said stay away from him last year as well. you had a little bit of interest in him. Deontay Johnson.
Yeah. No, I mean, even when we talked about it when you were in town and we did the podcast with Tay-Tay, I had even told you, I was like, I think George Pickens is going to be the guy, and it clearly is happening. You had successfully made a trade for him, and love to see it because he was just a stud. George Pickens, I mean, just to flip side this, Deontay Johnson's not the guy. They knew that too with, traded him to the Bears. Who am I thinking of? Wide receiver. Oh, God.
Chase Claypool.
Chase Claypool. Thank you. Sorry. Chase Claypool was a guy they were already over. Deontay Johnson was the exact same way, and George Pickens now is the wide receiver one for Pittsburgh. And a lot of people going back one weekend, oh, the Steelers are done, fire Mike Tomlin. We hear this all the time, and now look what they're doing. They're meshing, they're coming together, and they're looking like a pretty cohesive group, and that defense is nasty. So if you can get Pickens, get him now, because I think it's just going to be monster fantasy season going forward. Deontay Johnson, just stay on the IR, please.
Now, even though he's only position ranked 23, it's the consistent output that I like. Is DK Metcalf was second on my list, and I remember remarking in that podcast. Obviously, I love DK Metcalf as a player. I didn't think I believed in Geno Smith as much as the pre-rankings did this year from fantasy, forums. I was a little surprised to see him ranked ahead of Trevor, although maybe that's starting to pan out for the first 4 weeks, like I said, this podcast's about. So DK Metcalf actually, gets a touchdown week 1 on a couple of catches, 12.2 points in our format. Next week, catches all of his targets, 6 for 75, gets 10.5, 6 for 112 week 3, 15.2. If he's not blowing up the scoreboard, that's fine because, I mean, again, consistent output. I like that. If he did that all season, he'd probably end up a top 10 wide receiver. So I like what I see through, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and DK Metcalf should be a lineup lock.
Yeah, no, 100%. I really don't have much else to say other than let's see what Seattle does. And again, I agree with you with Geno Smith. So, but as of right now, it's not like you're going to sit. Who are you going to sit DK Metcalf for anyway?
Yeah, and that's if you have DK Metcalf, he's probably your wide receiver too to begin with.
Easy, easy.
And was probably targeted as such, so I like the value there. So number 1,
100%.
Kyle Pitts. What do you make of the constant disappointment, speaking of consistency?
Yeah, again, it's just something we've been talking about since day one when he was drafted. I didn't like it. I didn't like where the Falcons had got him. Matty Ice was on the way out. They now have Desmond Ridder. They just lost to the Lions and scored 6 whopping points. What was it, his rookie season? He had, was it 1 touchdown or 0 touchdowns, or was that last season? I can't even remember because I have already put that dude so far back up in my brain. I remember it was that last year he got drafted in the 3rd round. The pick before I got Josh Allen. So, I mean, I don't understand where people were I don't really know where people were drafting him this year, but I just knew I skimmed over him every single draft I had.
So, interesting to note with Kyle Pitts, his rookie year, he did have a 1,000-yard season. But, yeah, he had 1 touchdown. And,
that's it. Yeah, exactly.
Following season, there was some injury, 28 receptions, 356 yards, 2 TDs.
That's
now, right now, 9 receptions for 100 yards through 3 games. And it's just not the output we want to see. But if there's one encouraging thing I could let people know, he has a career average of 14.1 yards a catch. He obviously can stretch the field. He hasn't been playing with the greatest QBs. I think if you're going to trade for him, you be realistic and you trade low where his value actually is right now.
Right.
But, yeah, so far, so good on those. And now we're just going to real quickly skim over the Jaguars game as we do, and let's jag off. And this is going to be Falcons-Jaguars in London, 9:30 a.m. on Sunday. Rob, who are you taking here?
Okay, so I'm going to go and stick to being the guy that I am, Mr. Brightside with the Jaguars. Last week I was like, okay, we're playing Houston. This should be a pushover. We should do the thing. We didn't. We scored 0 points in the first half. I'm at the game sitting there going, okay, whoever's calling these plays, please revoke this clipboard out of their hands because it's not working. 0 points in any half. I don't care if it's the first or second in the NFL. Ain't going to win you games. I promise you that. Not in the NFL, it won't. In the third quarter, we scored back-to-back touchdowns. I was like, interesting. Okay, what's going on here? Of course, we ultimately end up getting blown out, but so be it. There was that little silver lining that I was like, something changed. What happened? And now it's being reported. It was actually reported right after the game that our offensive coordinator, Press Taylor, had been revoked of his duties, and Dougie P was calling the plays. I was like, well, how interesting is that? Now, of course, Doug Peterson's going out and saying to him, to the media, going, oh, no, I didn't do it. It was all Press Taylor. It's his buddy. He's not going to throw him under the bus. That's totally fine. It's totally fine. But this is what I'm saying. I believe we beat the crud out of the Falcons. If the Lions can do it, we can too. We just have to come together and be the cohesive group. Now, our offensive line is trash. Okay, fine. But Trevor Lawrence can make up for the trashiness. And what we have to do is spread the ball the way that we normally do. I think we threw to Calvin Ridley how many times in the first half? And I think Christian Kirk had 1 or 2 targets. Like, no, that's not going to freaking work. Mark Ingram, I always want to say that. Evan Ingram, we end up feeding him the ball in the second half. What happens? We're moving the ball down the field. And then ETN's opening up for bigger runs. And then on top of that, the dude just like, even at 4 yards, the dude just like, it's a lot of fun watching him run. He's a fun guy to watch. This is going to be a fun, cohesive group. It's going to happen. I say we blow out the Falcons, and people are going to go, whoa, what's going on with the Jaguars? And then statement game, as I've been saying all season, will be against the Bills in London next week, and we're going to beat them too. And people are going to go, are the Jaguars back on track? And yes, they are, because the Jaguars are just continuously getting in their own way, and it's not going to happen much longer, I promise.
Yeah, and I think this has to be the bounce-back game, and I don't think much of the Falcons. I think that they're going to have to be ready for Bijan Robinson because this kid's looking good. And it would ironically be the week that Pitts could split our defense right down the middle and make us look like clowns. But with Desmond Ridder at the helm, I just don't see this being an unwinnable game. So I'm not liking what I'm seeing the past few weeks, and I'm no longer feeling locked down with the Jaguars. But either way, I have my bets in for the Super Bowl and AFC and Trevor, throwing the most passing yards, and we'll see where that goes. And I'm fine with that. That's I'm happy with still betting on that at this stage, this early in the season. For this particular game, I have to believe it's that bounce back, and I'm thinking here's a good parlay here. Now, right now, we got Vegas at we got the over/under at 43.5. We got the spread at 3. I don't like to personally gamble on that kind of stuff. The money line here is a little more important to me. Jaguars -160, Falcons +135. So you lay down $100 on the Falcons, you win $135. You lay down $160 on the Jags, you win $100. So one of the parlays that I think I'm going to work with here, guys, and I do think that this is going to be how the game plays out, is you're going to see a massive bounce back from Trevor and Ridley. Peterson is a QB. He's a QB coach. He's a head coach, and he's going to get back in there, and he's going to get Trevor and Ridley on track for this game, get Ridley back into his head. They're not going to worry about the drops from last week. Calvin Ridley will have 70 or more receiving yards. Trevor Lawrence will have 225 or more passing yards. The Jaguars will lead at halftime. The Jaguars will win the game at end time. That is my same game parlay. That is odds of 475. I think that's a lock. Try putting that in this Sunday, and good luck to the Jags. Let's jag off.
That was fantasy with Rob and Ryan.